Hello, friend. Welcome to Science for Sleep. Each night, without planning to, without deciding to, you travel somewhere. You close your eyes, your body grows still, and at some quiet point, something begins to happen behind those closed lids. Images form, places appear, conversations unfold. You might be walking through a city you have never visited, or standing in a room that feels familiar, but slightly wrong. You might be speaking with someone who lives far away, or someone you have not seen in years. And while it is happening, it feels natural. It feels real. Then morning arrives, and whatever just happened begins to dissolve. There is often a strange feeling in those first seconds of waking. A sense that something vivid was just there, almost within reach. You try to hold on to it. A face, a color, a fragment of a sentence. But the more you reach, the faster it slips away. Within minutes, sometimes within seconds, it is gone. Not because it was unimportant, not because you were not paying attention, but because that is how the dreaming brain works. Every human dreams. Even people who believe they never do are dreaming each night. Studies of sleeping brains show that during certain stages of sleep, the brain becomes highly active. In fact, during one stage in particular, the level of activity in many areas of the brain can look similar to when you are awake. The difference is not that the brain is off. The difference is where the activity is directed. While you sleep, your eyes are closed. Yet the parts of the brain responsible for vision can become active again. This stage of sleep is often called rem-sleep, named for the small, rapid movements the eyes make beneath the eyelids. During REM sleep, the brain generates images internally, without any light entering the eyes at all. The visual system begins to fire, but it is not responding to the outside world. It is responding to patterns already stored within. At the same time, something else happens quietly in the body. Most of the muscles become temporarily relaxed to the point of near stillness. This is not paralysis in a dangerous sense. It is a protective feature. While the brain is creating movement, action, and experience inside the dream, the body remains safely at rest. Signals from the brain reduce muscle activity so that you do not physically act out what you are experiencing internally. The body stays quiet while the brain explores. And yet, for all of this activity, dreams are fragile. Research has shown that about half of dream content can be forgotten within 5 minutes of waking. Within 10 minutes, close to 90% may fade. This happens because the chemical balance of the brain during REM sleep is different from the balance that supports strong memory formation during the day. Certain messengers that help lock memories into place are lower at night. The dream is vivid while it is happening, but it is not always built to last. Each night, the brain builds a world in complete darkness. No light enters, no sound is required. The outside environment grows quiet, and yet an internally lit experience unfolds. Scenes are assembled from fragments of memory. Emotion fills them with meaning. The experience can feel continuous, as if you are truly somewhere else, even though you have not moved at all. If you enjoy these quiet journeys, you're welcome to subscribe. And if it feels natural, to leave a comment sharing where you're listening from tonight. It helps others find their way to this calm corner of the world, one sleepy traveler at a time. The quiet continues here, just as it is. Dreaming is something we all do, yet it remains one of the most personal experiences we have. No one else can see the world your brain builds at night. No one else walks through those exact places or hears those exact conversations. And yet, the process itself is shared by nearly every human being on Earth. Tonight, we will gently explore how this happens. Not in a clinical way and not in a complicated way, but in a steady, understandable way. We will look at how the outside world grows quieter, how the brain shifts its balance, how images appear without light, and why emotions sometimes feel stronger in sleep than in waking life. For now, it is enough to notice that something remarkable happens each night. You lie still. The room grows dark, and inside the quiet of your own head, an entire world begins. When sleep begins, it does not arrive all at once. It moves in slowly, almost politely. The outside world starts to matter a little less. Light loses its sharpness. Sounds that once seemed clear and defined begin to blur at the edges. A passing car, the hum of a distant appliance, the faint shift of air in the room. None of it disappears completely at first. It simply becomes less important. As you settle deeper, the brain begins to change how it handles information. During the day, your nervous system is constantly scanning the environment. It listens for movement. It watches for changes in light. It tracks small shifts in temperature and sound. This scanning keeps you alert and oriented. It allows you to respond quickly, but it also requires energy. The brain must continuously sort through incoming signals and decide what deserves attention. As sleep approaches, that sorting system begins to relax. There is a small but powerful structure deep in the center of the brain that helps regulate which sensory signals move forward and which are softened. It acts almost like a gatekeeper. During wakefulness, this gate is relatively open. Light, sound, and touch pass through easily, reaching the areas of the brain that interpret and respond. As sleep deepens, this gate begins to narrow. Fewer signals are allowed through. The brightness of the outside world dims, not necessarily because the world itself has changed, but because the brain is no longer prioritizing it in the same way. This shift does not happen abruptly. It unfolds gradually, like turning down the volume on a distant radio. This gating structure is called the thalamus. You do not need to remember its name. What matters is what it does. It helps decide what reaches your awareness. When the thalamus reduces the flow of sensory information, the brain becomes less driven by the outside world. Instead of reacting to incoming input, it begins to rely more heavily on internal activity. Patterns already stored in memory, emotions already present, fragments of experience that were collected earlier in the day. In simple terms, the brain shifts from receiving to generating. This transition is one of the quiet foundations of dreaming. When external input becomes softer, the brain has more room to create internally. It is no longer busy tracking the environment. It can begin to assemble its own. Scientists can observe this change in laboratory settings. As people move from wakefulness into early sleep, brain waves begin to slow. Electrical patterns that were once fast and irregular become more rhythmic. This slowing reflects a change in coordination between regions of the brain. Activity becomes more synchronized. Communication shifts. the overall tone of the nervous system lowers. Breathing often slows. Heart rate steadies. Muscles relax further. The body is not shutting down. It is reorganizing. This reduction in sensory input also explains why falling asleep can sometimes feel like drifting. Without strong external signals to anchor awareness, thoughts may become less linear. Images may begin to form in brief flashes. A voice that is not quite external, not quite internal, may surface for a moment. These early fragments are not yet full dreams. They are signs that the outside world has loosened its grip. When the thalamus narrows its gate, it does not close completely. A loud sound can still wake you. A sudden movement can still pull you back. But the threshold is higher. The brain is choosing rest over vigilance. And as the outer world grows quieter, the inner landscape becomes more available. The reduction of sensory input is not just about darkness or silence. It is about attention. Attention shifts inward. The nervous system reallocates its resources. Energy once used to monitor the environment can now support internal processes. Memory sorting, emotional processing, pattern integration. The quieting of external signals creates space. This is why dreams do not begin while we are fully alert and scanning. They begin only after the outside world has softened enough to allow internal activity to take center stage. The transition is subtle. You do not feel the thalamus adjusting its filter. You do not notice brain waves slowing. You simply experience the gentle fading of the outer world. The edges blur. The weight of the day becomes less defined. And in that softening, something else prepares to emerge. The brain is not emptying. It is turning inward. It can be tempting to imagine sleep as a kind of shutdown. The lights go out. The body rests. The day is finished. From the outside, that is exactly what it looks like. Someone lying still in the dark does not appear busy. There is no visible effort, no movement, no conversation, no problem solving. It feels as though the system has powered down. But inside the brain, that is not what is happening. In certain stages of sleep, especially during REM sleep, activity increases again. If you were to look at a scan of the brain during this stage, you would see patterns that look surprisingly similar to wakefulness. Electrical signals move quickly. Regions communicate. Networks engage. The brain is not inactive. It is active in a different direction. One of the areas that becomes especially lively during dreaming is the visual cortex. This is the region near the back of the brain that helps you see during the day. It normally responds to light entering your eyes, but during REM sleep, it activates even though your eyes are closed and no light is present. The images in dreams are not coming from outside. They are being generated from stored patterns inside the brain. At the same time, emotional centers become more active. A small almond-shaped structure deep in the brain called the amygdala plays a key role in emotional processing. During REM sleep, this region often shows increased activity. This may help explain why dreams can feel emotionally intense. Fear, joy, embarrassment, longing. These feelings can seem amplified at night, even when the events themselves are strange or unrealistic. Emotion becomes stronger. Meanwhile, parts of the brain involved in careful reasoning and self-monitoring become less active. The area just behind your forehead, often associated with planning, logic, and decision-making, shows reduced activity during REM sleep. This helps explain why unusual events in dreams rarely feel strange while they are happening. You might find yourself flying or speaking with someone who has been gone for years, and it does not immediately trigger doubt. The part of the brain that would normally question the situation is quieter. Logic softens, emotion brightens. This combination creates a powerful experience. The brain is active. The visual system is engaged. Emotional centers are vivid, but the part responsible for critical evaluation is subdued. The result is a world that feels immersive and convincing, even when it defies the rules of physical reality. Scientists studying brain activity during sleep have noticed that REM sleep often occurs in cycles throughout the night. These cycles repeat roughly every 90 minutes. Early in the night, REM periods are shorter. As morning approaches, they tend to grow longer. This means that many of the most elaborate dreams occur closer to waking, when REM stages extend and brain activity remains elevated for longer stretches. This cycling pattern is part of the natural architecture of sleep. It is not random. The brain moves through different stages in a structured rhythm. Deep, slow-wave sleep tends to dominate earlier in the night. REM sleep becomes more frequent later on. Each stage serves different functions. Dreaming is most strongly associated with REM, but traces of imagery can occur in other stages as well. What matters here is not the labels, but the pattern. Sleep is dynamic. It changes over the course of the night. Brain activity rises and falls in waves. Some periods are quiet and slow. Others are active and vivid. The dreaming brain is not a passive state. It is a coordinated shift in which certain systems increase their activity, while others decrease. This balance creates the conditions for internally generated experience. When the outer world grows quiet, as we explored before, the brain does not become empty. It redirects its energy. Visual areas engage without light. Emotional centers heighten without external events. Logical oversight softens without conscious choice. From the outside, nothing appears to be happening. From the inside, entire worlds are forming. Sleep is not the absence of activity. It is a change in direction. As the night deepens and the brain shifts its direction, another quiet change unfolds beneath the surface. The brain runs on chemistry. Every thought, every movement, every memory depends on tiny chemical messengers moving between cells. These messengers do not shout. They do not flash. They drift across microscopic gaps and influence how likely one cell is to speak to the next. During the day, one balance of these chemicals supports alert thinking, focused attention, and steady memory formation. At night, that balance changes. The shift is not random. It follows a pattern. During REM sleep, one chemical called acetylcholine rises. You do not need to remember its name. What matters is what it does. Acetylcholine supports activity in areas of the brain involved in imagery and rapid signaling. When its levels increase, the visual system becomes more excitable. Communication speeds up. Internal scenes become easier to generate. At the same time, other chemicals that help anchor experience to waking memory decrease. One of these is norepinephrine. During the day, norepinephrine helps the brain stay alert. It strengthens memory encoding. It prepares the body to respond to change. But during REM sleep, norepinephrine levels drop significantly. This reduction contributes to the feeling of immersion in dreams. Without strong alertness signals, the brain does not constantly question what is happening. It also helps explain why dreams fade so easily upon waking. The chemical environment that supports strong memory storage is simply not at its daytime level. Serotonin, another messenger involved in mood regulation and stability, also decreases during REM sleep. Its reduction contributes to the altered balance of emotion and reasoning. The brain is not operating with the same stabilizing chemistry it uses during the day. The result is a landscape that can feel fluid, emotional, and less constrained. This chemical shift is sometimes described as a tide. During wakefulness, certain messengers rise and fall in patterns that support outward focus. As night progresses and REM sleep begins, a different tide rolls in. Acetylcholine increases, norepinephrine lowers, serotonin softens. The overall balance favors vivid internal activity over external vigilance. You do not feel this chemistry directly. There is no sensation of molecules shifting, but the effects are clear in experience. The world inside the dream becomes bright and dynamic. Emotions carry weight. Events unfold with a sense of immediacy, and yet, upon waking, the memory may be fragile. Scientists can measure these changes in laboratory studies. By sampling brain chemistry during different stages of sleep, they have observed consistent patterns across individuals. REM sleep has a distinct chemical profile. It is not simply lighter sleep. It is a unique state with its own internal balance. This balance creates conditions that are both immersive and temporary. Immersive because imagery systems are active and emotional centers are engaged. Temporary because memory-stabilizing messengers are reduced. There is also evidence that bursts of electrical activity, sometimes called ponto-geniculo-occipital waves, occur at the onset of REM sleep. These brief signals travel from deeper brain regions toward visual areas. They may help initiate dream imagery, like a spark that begins the internal show. You do not experience these waves consciously, but they are part of the choreography that makes dreaming possible. The chemical landscape of the brain is always shifting, even during the day, but at night, the shift is pronounced. It supports a different kind of experience, one that is internally generated, emotionally colored, and less anchored to outside input. This does not mean dreaming is chaotic. It means the rules are slightly altered. The chemistry of wakefulness favors stability, attention, and memory storage. The chemistry of REM sleep favors imagery, emotion, and internal exploration. As the outer world remains quiet and the body stays still, this altered chemical balance allows the brain to move freely within itself. The tide rises, the inner world brightens, and the experience continues. As the brain shifts its chemistry and begins to generate vivid internal scenes, something equally important is happening in the body. The body grows still. If you were to watch someone during REM sleep, you might notice small movements of the eyes beneath closed lids. You might see subtle shifts in breathing, but the larger muscles of the arms and legs remain quiet. There is no walking, no reaching, no sudden leaps that match the events unfolding in the dream. This stillness is not accidental. During REM sleep, the brain actively reduces signals to most of the skeletal muscles. Messages that would normally travel from the brain down the spinal cord to trigger movement are softened. The result is a state of temporary muscle relaxation. Scientists sometimes refer to this as REM atonia. Atonia simply means a lack of muscle tone. It sounds technical, but the idea is simple. While the brain is imagining movement, the body stays safely at rest. This protective system begins in a region of the brainstem, an area deep and low in the brain that helps regulate basic functions like breathing and heart rate. During REM sleep, cells in this region send inhibitory signals downward. These signals reduce the activity of motor neurons, the cells responsible for activating muscles. In waking life, motor neurons fire constantly. They help you adjust posture, move your hands, shift your head. Even when you think you are still, tiny muscle corrections are always happening. During REM sleep, many of these pathways are dampened. The body is not frozen in a rigid sense. Breathing continues. The heart beats. Small twitches may occur, but large voluntary movements are mostly prevented. This is why you can dream of running without your legs actually moving. You can dream of speaking without your mouth forming words. The brain constructs the experience of motion, but the physical system remains quiet. There are rare cases in which this protective mechanism does not function fully. In a condition called REM sleep behavior disorder, individuals may physically act out their dreams. Movements that would normally be suppressed can break through. This condition is uncommon, but it highlights how intentional and structured the REM atonia system truly is. Under typical circumstances, the muscle relaxation is strong and reliable. It is part of the architecture of sleep. You do not feel the moment when muscle signals are reduced. You simply experience the absence of movement. The body lies still. The weight of your limbs settles into the surface beneath you. Tension drains slowly from larger muscle groups. Even the muscles that help hold posture during the day are allowed to rest. This physical stillness also contributes to the feeling of immersion in dreams. When the body is not sending strong signals of movement or position back to the brain, there is less contradiction between the imagined scene and the physical state. If you are dreaming that you are walking along a shoreline, there are no competing signals from your real legs pressing into the mattress. The quiet body allows the imagined movement to feel uninterrupted. The stillness is not emptiness. It is cooperation. The brain explores internally, while the body conserves energy and remains safe. Across a full night of sleep, this cycle repeats several times. Periods of deeper, slower sleep alternate with REM stages in which dreaming is most vivid and muscle tone is lowest. Each stage serves its own purpose. Deep sleep supports physical restoration. REM sleep supports internal processing. The body and brain take turns in subtle coordination. You lie there, unmoving, your breathing steady, your muscles at rest. And inside that quiet frame, the brain continues its activity. The outer world remains soft. The inner world moves freely. Stillness outside, movement within. How can you see with closed eyes? It seems impossible at first. Vision, during the day, depends on light. Light enters the eyes. It strikes the retina. Signals travel backward through delicate pathways until they reach the part of the brain that interprets shape, color, and motion. Without light, there should be nothing to see. And yet, during sleep, entire landscapes appear. Faces are recognizable. Rooms feel detailed. Skies stretch wide. Sometimes colors are vivid. Sometimes they are muted. But the experience of seeing is unmistakable. The explanation begins in the back of the brain. There is a region called the visual cortex. During wakefulness, this area responds to signals coming from the eyes. It helps translate raw light into meaningful images. But during REM sleep, the visual cortex can become active even though no light is entering at all. The eyes remain closed. The room remains dark. Yet the visual system lights up internally. The images are not coming from outside. They are being generated from within. The brain does not store memories like a video recording. It does not keep full scenes saved in a single place. Instead, it stores fragments, bits of color, edges of shapes, emotional tones, sounds, pieces of conversations, locations associated with feelings. These fragments are distributed across many regions. During dreaming, these pieces can be brought back together. The brain begins to recombine stored patterns. A street from one memory blends with the face of someone from another. A childhood home merges with a building seen only once in passing. The brain assembles scenes not by replaying them exactly as they were, but by rebuilding them from parts. A structure called the hippocampus plays an important role in this process. The hippocampus helps organize and retrieve memories. During sleep, especially during REM stages, it becomes active in a way that suggests replay and reorganization. Studies in animals have shown that patterns of activity from earlier in the day can reappear during sleep, almost as if the brain is rehearsing or sorting through what it has experienced. In humans, brain imaging suggests something similar. The hippocampus communicates with visual areas and other regions involved in memory. This communication may help piece together dream scenes from stored fragments. The result is not always accurate, but it feels coherent. When you dream of walking through a place, the details might shift subtly. A door might appear where it does not belong. The sky might have a color you have never seen before. Yet your mind accepts it. The visual cortex is active. The hippocampus is retrieving patterns. The brain fills in missing details automatically. The same system that allows you to imagine a beach during the day allows you to experience one vividly at night. There is also evidence that short bursts of activity travel from deeper brain regions toward the visual cortex at the beginning of REM sleep. These signals may help initiate imagery. They do not create specific scenes on their own. Instead, they seem to prepare the visual system to begin generating internal content. Once the process begins, the brain does not need external input to sustain it. Think about how you can picture a friend's face even with your eyes open. The image forms inside your awareness without needing to look at them. Dreaming uses that same ability, but with greater immersion and less interruption. There is no competing stream of external light, no constant reminder of the physical room. The internally generated image becomes the primary experience. the visual cortex responds as if it were seeing. Neurons fire in patterns that resemble waking vision. But the source is memory, not light. This is why dreams can feel visually rich even in complete darkness. The eyes are not required once the brain has stored enough experience to reconstruct scenes. The brain is not waiting for input. It is capable of producing its own. The outside world has grown quiet. The body remains still. And inside that stillness, the brain builds images from fragments it already holds, arranging them into moving scenes that feel immediate and real, even without a single ray of light. You usually realize a dream was not real only after you wake. While it is happening, it feels natural. You accept the setting. You accept the people. You accept the strange turns in the story. Even when something unusual happens, like walking through a wall or speaking to someone who is no longer alive, it rarely feels impossible in the moment. The question is not why dreams are strange. The question is why they feel convincing. Part of the answer lies in emotion. During REM sleep, areas of the brain that process emotion become more active. One of these areas is called the amygdala. It is small and deep within the brain, and it helps you respond to emotional meaning. It becomes active when something feels important, exciting, or threatening. It also helps attach feeling to memory. When the amygdala becomes more active during dreaming, emotional tone can grow stronger. A simple conversation may feel intense. A small conflict may feel overwhelming. A joyful reunion may feel deeply moving. The emotional color of the dream can become the organizing force of the experience. Emotion leads, details follow. At the same time, areas of the brain that help you step back and evaluate a situation become quieter. The region behind the forehead that supports careful reasoning and self-reflection shows reduced activity during REM sleep. This does not mean thinking stops completely. It means the level of critical monitoring decreases. In waking life, that monitoring system constantly checks for consistency. It asks silent questions. Does this make sense? Is this possible? Does this match reality? During dreaming, those questions are less active. Emotion fills the space where doubt would normally appear. If you dream that you are late for something important, the feeling of urgency may dominate the scene. You may not pause to question how you arrived there or why the environment looks slightly unfamiliar. The emotional signal is strong enough to carry the experience forward. This combination creates a powerful effect. The visual system is active, generating detailed imagery. The emotional centers are engaged, adding intensity and meaning. The logical oversight system is softened, reducing interruptions. The result is an internally built world that feels immersive. It is not that the brain is confused. It is that different systems are prioritized. Scientists studying brain activity during dreaming have observed this pattern consistently. Emotional regions show heightened activation. Regions involved in careful planning and reflection show lower activation compared to wakefulness. The balance shifts toward feeling rather than analysis. This helps explain why dreams often focus on relationships, fears, hopes, and unfinished conversations. The emotional tone becomes the thread that connects scenes. Even when the environment changes suddenly, the underlying feeling may remain steady. A sense of anxiety can persist across different settings. A feeling of warmth can carry from one location to another. Emotion shapes the narrative. It acts like a lens through which the rest of the imagery is filtered. You may dream of being chased, not because the specific setting matters, but because the feeling of being pursued carries emotional weight. You may dream of reunion, not because the exact details are accurate, but because the feeling of connection is strong. When you wake and the logical systems fully return, you may notice inconsistencies. The building layout made no sense. The timeline was impossible. The person looked different than they do in real life. But during the dream, those inconsistencies did not interrupt the flow. The experience felt real because the emotional system treated it as meaningful. In waking life, reality feels convincing because sensory input is strong and consistent. In dreaming, reality feels convincing because emotion is strong and uninterrupted. Different mechanisms, similar immersion. The brain does not require external evidence to generate a sense of presence. It requires coordinated activity across imagery and emotion. When those systems align, even an internally constructed world can feel immediate and authentic. You lie still. The outer world remains quiet. And inside the calm of your sleeping mind, emotion gives shape and weight to images that were built from memory, making them feel, for a time, entirely true. Strange combinations in dreams often feel completely normal. You might find yourself back in a school you once attended, but it also looks like a workplace you have now. A close friend may appear with a different voice. A hallway may stretch far longer than it ever did in waking life. And yet, in the moment, none of this feels especially unusual. Only after waking do you pause and think, that did not make sense. During the dream itself, the pieces fit together just enough. Part of the reason dreams become strange lies in how the brain links ideas while you sleep. In waking life, your brain constantly checks for consistency. When two ideas conflict, you notice. When a scene changes abruptly, you question it. This monitoring helps keep your experience stable and predictable. It relies on systems that compare new information with stored knowledge and flag differences. During REM sleep, that monitoring is quieter. The part of the brain that evaluates and corrects is less active. As we explored earlier, the reasoning systems soften while emotional and visual systems brighten. Without strong oversight, the brain is more willing to allow unusual combinations to stand. At the same time, associative networks become more flexible. Your brain is built to link related ideas. A smell can trigger a memory. A song can bring back a specific moment. During dreaming, these links can become broader and less restrained. Instead of connecting only closely related concepts, the brain may connect distant ones. A person from childhood might appear in a current setting. A place visited once may blend with a familiar home. The connections are not random. They are based on stored patterns. But the threshold for linking them is lowered. Think of it as a library, where the usual rules of shelving have relaxed. Books that normally sit far apart are placed side by side. The themes may overlap loosely, even if the details do not match perfectly. During the day, a librarian would reorganize them. At night, the arrangement is allowed to remain. This loosening does not mean chaos. Dreams often follow a certain emotional or thematic logic. Even if the setting shifts, the underlying feeling tends to remain consistent. If the dream carries anxiety, each scene may support that feeling. If the dream carries curiosity, the scenes may unfold in ways that sustain exploration. The strangeness comes from the structure of connections, not from a lack of structure entirely. Researchers believe that reduced activity in reasoning areas, combined with heightened activity in emotional and memory systems, allows the brain to explore associations more freely. Without strict rule checking, ideas can blend in creative ways. This may even support problem solving and emotional processing, though the process itself can appear unusual from the outside. You may dream that you are speaking with someone who has features from several different people. The brain is merging stored representations. You may move through spaces that shift shape. The brain is reassembling fragments of spatial memory. These blends are not deliberate. They arise from overlapping patterns of stored information. During waking life, your brain filters heavily. It selects and stabilizes. During REM sleep, the filter is lighter. The result is a world where transitions can happen without warning. A door opens into a different city. A familiar road leads somewhere entirely new. Conversations change direction without explanation. And still, the experience continues, because the emotional thread remains intact. This is why dreams can feel symbolic, even if you do not consciously assign meaning to them. The brain may be linking ideas based on shared emotional tone rather than shared physical detail. A feeling of loss might connect two different memories. A feeling of excitement might blend two unrelated experiences. Rules loosen. Pattern remains. The outside world is quiet. The body is still. And inside the dreaming mind, connections stretch further than they would in daylight, weaving together fragments into scenes that are unusual, but not entirely without order. Dreams can feel long or short in ways that do not match the clock. You may wake with the impression that you experienced hours of events, only to discover that very little time has passed. Or you may feel as though a dream was brief and fragmented, when in fact it unfolded during a longer stretch of sleep. Time inside a dream does not always follow the steady rhythm of waking life. During the day, your sense of time is anchored by external signals. Light changes slowly across the sky. Sounds follow predictable patterns. Clocks tick. Conversations unfold at a measured pace. Your brain uses these signals to track duration. It compares movement, light, and change to estimate how much time has passed. When you sleep, those external anchors are reduced. The room remains dark. Sounds are softened by the sensory gate we discussed earlier. The brain is no longer monitoring clocks or tracking the environment in the same way. Without strong external reference points, the sense of time becomes more fluid. But time perception does not disappear entirely. The brain still has internal systems that help organize sequence and duration. Neurons fire in patterns. Activity rises and falls in cycles. Even during sleep, there is structure. REM sleep, in particular, occurs in repeating cycles throughout the night. These cycles tend to last about 90 minutes from start to finish, moving through different stages before returning again to REM. Early in the night, REM periods are often short, sometimes only a few minutes. As morning approaches, they grow longer. It is during these later REM periods that dreams can become more extended and detailed. Research suggests that the length of a dream often corresponds closely to the length of the REM period in which it occurs. When scientists wake people during REM sleep and ask them to describe what they were experiencing, reports typically match the duration of the stage. A dream that feels long usually took place during a longer REM episode. A dream that feels brief often aligns with a shorter one. The distortion of time inside the dream comes from perception, not from actual expansion or contraction of the sleep stage. Because the brain is generating events internally, it can move quickly from one scene to another without transitional details. In waking life, moving from one place to another takes time. Walking across a building requires steps. Driving across a city requires distance. In dreams, the brain can shift locations instantly. This compression of transition can make the sequence feel faster or more condensed. At the same time, emotional intensity can stretch the experience. When a dream carries strong emotion, each moment can feel amplified. The mind lingers on certain scenes, giving the impression of longer duration. Without external clocks to correct it, the internal sense of time bends. Scientists believe that regions involved in timing and sequence continue to operate during sleep, but in a modified way. The brain maintains order. Events follow one another. Causes lead to effects. But the pacing is governed by internal dynamics rather than external measurement. This is why you can experience what feels like an extended story, complete with beginning, middle, and end, within a REM period that lasts only 20 minutes. The brain is capable of assembling narrative rapidly. It does not need physical movement or environmental change to advance the plot. When you wake, the clock resumes its authority. The room provides stable reference again. Light and sound re-establish consistency. The dream is measured against real-world time, and the difference becomes noticeable. But during sleep, the sense of time belongs entirely to the brain's internal rhythm. The outside world is quiet. No ticking clock reaches awareness, and inside the dream, time flows according to the pace of neural activity, stretching or compressing as the brain continues its quiet, structured cycles through the night. There is a very specific feeling that often comes with waking from a dream. For a brief moment, it is there, clear enough to sense, soft enough to fade. You may try to hold it in place. You repeat a phrase in your mind. You rehearse a scene quickly, hoping to anchor it. But within seconds, the details begin to dissolve. The setting blurs. Faces lose definition. The emotional tone lingers a little longer, but the structure collapses. This fading is not a failure of memory. It is part of how the dreaming brain is designed. During waking life, forming strong memories depends on certain chemical conditions. One of the key messengers involved is norepinephrine. During the day, norepinephrine helps the brain stay alert. It strengthens connections between neurons when something important happens. It supports the process that stabilizes experiences into long-term memory. During REM sleep, norepinephrine levels drop significantly. This drop is part of the chemical shift we explored earlier. It helps create the immersive quality of dreaming. But it also means that the conditions for long-term storage are reduced. The dream may feel vivid while it unfolds, but the brain is not operating in full memory locking mode. Researchers have measured dream recall patterns carefully. When people are awakened during REM sleep and asked to describe their dream immediately, they often provide detailed reports. But if they wait even a few minutes before speaking, recall decreases sharply. Studies suggest that roughly 50% of dream content may be lost within 5 minutes of waking. Within 10 minutes, close to 90% can fade. The experience does not vanish because it lacked meaning. It fades because the neurochemical environment was not optimized for retention. There is another factor involved. Timing matters. If you wake directly from REM sleep, you are more likely to remember at least a fragment of the dream. If you pass smoothly into another stage of sleep before waking fully, the dream can dissolve before it reaches conscious awareness. The memory never stabilizes enough to be accessed. This is why some people say they rarely dream. In reality, almost everyone experiences multiple REM cycles each night. What varies is recall. Some people wake during or near REM more frequently. Others transition gently through stages and wake during lighter sleep or deep sleep, with no dream fragment available. Dreaming and remembering are not the same thing. Even the emotional intensity of a dream does not guarantee recall. A dream may feel powerful while it is happening, but without the chemical support needed for consolidation, it can disappear like mist in sunlight. Interestingly, certain conditions can increase dream recall. Stress can fragment sleep, leading to more awakenings during REM. This can make dreams seem more frequent. Keeping a dream journal can also strengthen recall over time. The simple act of paying attention to dreams appears to make the brain more likely to capture them. But even without deliberate effort, the fading itself serves a purpose. If every dream was stored as clearly as waking experience, the boundary between night and day might blur. The brain may prioritize keeping waking memory stable and uncluttered. Dreams, while meaningful in process, are not always meant to persist in detail. The emotional tone sometimes lingers longer than the imagery. You may wake with a sense of unease or warmth without remembering why. That lingering feeling reflects activity in emotional systems that were engaged during the dream. The narrative may be gone, but the residue remains. This dissolving quality is part of the quiet design of sleep. The outside world returns. The chemistry shifts again. Norepinephrine rises with waking. Alertness increases, and the internally built world softens and recedes. What remains is often only a trace, a fragment, a feeling, and the quiet knowledge that something unfolded in the darkness, even if the details are no longer within reach. If you have ever watched a sleeping child, you may have noticed small movements, a brief twitch of the hand, a soft murmur, a flicker beneath closed eyelids. The body remains mostly still, but there are subtle signs that something is happening inside. Dreaming does not begin in adulthood. It begins much earlier. In fact, infants spend a remarkable portion of their sleep in active dreaming stages. In the first months of life, nearly half of a baby's total sleep time can occur in a state similar to REM sleep. This proportion gradually decreases with age, but early in development, active sleep is dominant. Why would a developing brain spend so much time in this state? One reason may be growth. An infant's brain is still forming connections at a rapid pace. Neurons are linking, pathways are strengthening, and networks are organizing. Active sleep, including REM-sleep, may support this process. The internal activity during this stage could help stimulate developing systems even before the child has accumulated many waking experiences. At this early stage, dreaming likely does not look the way it does in adults. Infants do not yet have language. Their sense of self is still emerging. Narrative structure, the kind of story-like sequence that older children and adults report in dreams, appears later. Early dreaming may consist more of sensory fragments, flashes of light, simple shapes, bodily sensations, emotional tones. As children grow and their cognitive abilities expand, dream content becomes more structured. Research suggests that young children often report simpler dream imagery. Scenes may involve movement or single events, without complex dialogue. Over time, as memory systems mature and language develops, dreams begin to resemble stories. Characters interact. Settings remain more stable. Sequences become clearer. The hippocampus, which plays a role in organizing memory, continues to develop throughout childhood. As it strengthens, the ability to build coherent narratives improves. This likely influences how dreams are assembled and recalled. Interestingly, children often report dreams involving animals, movement, or familiar environments. Emotional themes can appear early as well. Fear, excitement, curiosity. These emotional tones do not require advanced reasoning. They arise from deep brain systems that are active long before language is fully formed. The high proportion of REM sleep in infancy gradually decreases through adolescence and adulthood. By adulthood, REM sleep typically makes up about 20 to 25% of total sleep time. The brain no longer requires as much internally generated stimulation for development. Instead, sleep stages balance restoration, memory integration, and emotional processing. Dream recall also changes with age. Very young children may not reliably describe dreams, not because they are absent, but because language and self-reflection are still emerging. As verbal skills improve, dream reporting becomes more detailed. Teenagers and adults can describe complex dream plots, shifting perspectives, and layered emotional experiences. The maturation of dreaming mirrors the maturation of cognition. As the brain grows, so does the structure of internal experience. What remains consistent across age is the presence of active sleep stages. The cycles repeat. The visual areas activate. Emotional centers engage. Muscle tone lowers. Even in infancy, the basic architecture of dreaming is present. This suggests that dreaming is not an accidental byproduct of adult thought. It is woven into the structure of the human brain from early development. A sleeping child, eyes moving gently beneath closed lids, is not in an empty state. The brain is active. Connections are strengthening. Internal patterns are forming. Long before a child can explain a dream, the neural systems that support dreaming are already in motion. As we grow, the content changes. The narratives become richer. The imagery becomes more detailed, but the foundation remains the same. From infancy onward, the brain moves through cycles of quiet and activity. Stillness outside, movement within, And in those early years, as the mind is still learning how to understand the world, it is already learning how to build one of its own in the dark. If you have ever lived with a dog, you may have seen it. A sleeping body, heavy and relaxed, and then a sudden flicker. A paw paddling gently as if running. A soft whine. A quick twitch of the muzzle. The eyes moving beneath closed lids like something is unfolding behind them. Cats can do it too. A sleeping cat may be perfectly still for long stretches, and then, without warning, the tail gives a small snap. Whiskers shift. A paw curls and uncurls. Sometimes the whole body seems to ripple for a moment, as if the cat is chasing something in a place you cannot see. These moments are so common that many people instinctively describe them as dreaming. And in a calm, scientific sense, that is a reasonable guess. We cannot ask an animal to describe its dream the way we can ask a human. But we can observe the patterns that surround dreaming in humans, then look for similar patterns in other species. When we do that, we find something surprising and steady. Many animals show sleep stages that resemble ours. They cycle through periods of quiet, slow sleep and periods of active sleep, including REM-sleep, where the brain becomes more active and the eyes may move beneath closed lids. In mammals, REM-sleep is widespread. It appears in cats, dogs, rats, and many other species. It is not a rare human feature. It is a conserved part of mammalian sleep architecture. This matters because, in humans, REM sleep is closely linked with vivid dreaming. So when we see other mammals entering REM sleep, showing similar brain activity patterns and physical signs, it suggests that they may also be having internally generated experiences. But there is even stronger evidence than twitching paws. Some of the most fascinating findings come from studies in rats. Researchers have recorded activity in the hippocampus of rats while they run through mazes. The hippocampus contains cells that help map space, often called place cells. When a rat moves through a hallway or turns a corner, specific patterns of these cells activate, almost like a neural signature of that route. Then something remarkable happens later. When the rat sleeps, the hippocampus can replay similar patterns of activity, sometimes in the same order as the maze run, and sometimes in a compressed, faster sequence. It is as if the brain is reviewing or rehearsing the experience internally, without the body moving through the environment. This replay is not proof of a dream in the human storytelling sense, but it is strong evidence of internal simulation. It shows that the sleeping brain is not idle. It is reactivating patterns of waking experience, reassembling them in the absence of outside input. That is one of the central ingredients of dreaming. Birds add another quiet layer to this story. Some birds, including songbirds, show sleep patterns that include both slow sleep and REM sleep. And in certain studies, birds that learn songs can show replay-like activity during sleep. Neural patterns connected to singing and learning may reactivate at night, suggesting that sleep supports memory refinement in a way that crosses species boundaries. The presence of REM sleep in birds is especially interesting because it suggests that active sleep is not limited to mammals. Different lineages, different brains, and yet a similar rhythm appears. Quiet stages, active stages, internal replay. When we look across species, a picture begins to form. Dreaming, in some form, may not be a uniquely human event. It may be a feature of nervous systems that learn, remember, and navigate complex environments. The more an animal relies on memory, social cues, and flexible behavior, the more valuable internal replay might be. Still, it is important to stay gentle and honest. We do not know exactly what it feels like to be a dog in REM sleep. We do not know whether a cat experiences a full narrative or only fragments of sensation and emotion. We do not know whether a rat experiences an image of the maze or only a replay of spatial patterns. But we can say this: the sleeping brains of many animals show the same key ingredients we associate with dreaming in humans. They show active sleep stages. They show internal reactivation of waking patterns. They show physical signs that suggest the body is quiet while something internal plays out. So when you see a dog's paws moving softly in sleep, it is not strange to imagine an inner world unfolding. A place without light, a path without movement, a chase that happens entirely in stillness. The outside world remains quiet. The body rests. And inside the sleeping mind, across many species, the brain appears to revisit what it has lived, turning experience into patterns again, as if practice and memory can continue even in the dark. Once we understand how dreams happen, a quieter question begins to surface. Why? Why would the brain spend time each night generating images, replaying memories, and creating entire internal worlds? Why not simply rest in silence? Scientists have been asking this question for decades. There is no single agreed answer. Instead, there are careful possibilities. Gentle explanations that attempt to describe what dreaming might support. One possibility is rehearsal. The brain may use dreams to practice situations in a safe environment. Not in a dramatic way, but in a subtle one. You might dream of navigating a difficult conversation, escaping from danger, or solving a problem. The dream does not need to be realistic to serve a purpose. It may allow the brain to simulate scenarios without physical risk. This idea suggests that dreaming provides a kind of internal training ground. The body stays still. The mind explores possibilities. Another possibility involves memory. During the day, you gather enormous amounts of information. Faces, conversations, sounds, small details you may not consciously notice. Sleep is known to support memory consolidation, the process by which fragile daytime experiences become more stable. Dreaming may be part of that sorting process. When the hippocampus reactivates patterns from earlier in the day, it may be strengthening some connections and letting others fade. The dream scenes that emerge could reflect this reorganization. The content may feel strange, but beneath it, patterns are being adjusted. In this view, dreaming is not separate from memory processing. It is one of the ways the brain reorganizes experience. There is also the emotional angle. Dreams often carry strong feeling: joy, anxiety, longing, relief. Some researchers believe that dreaming helps regulate emotional responses. By replaying experiences in a state where stress-related chemicals are lower, the brain may gradually reduce the intensity attached to certain memories. Instead of reliving an event with full waking alertness, the brain revisits it in a calmer chemical environment. Over time, this may soften emotional charge. The dream may feel intense in the moment, but the repeated processing could lead to a gentler waking response. Another idea focuses on connection resetting. Throughout the day, billions of neural connections are strengthened as you learn and adapt. Sleep may provide a period where some of these connections are recalibrated, not erased entirely, but adjusted. Dreaming may reflect this adjustment process, as networks activate and reorganize in flexible ways. These ideas are not mutually exclusive. The brain is complex enough to support multiple functions at once. Dreaming may rehearse possibilities, sort memory, regulate emotion, and recalibrate connections simultaneously. It may not be a single-purpose system. It may be an integrated one. Importantly, there is no strong evidence that dreams are random noise without structure. Even when the content appears unusual, the brain is following patterns. Neural systems activate in coordinated ways. Memory fragments reappear. Emotional themes persist. At the same time, it is wise to remain calm and balanced. Not every dream carries a hidden message. Not every image requires interpretation. Sometimes dreaming may simply reflect the ongoing maintenance of a living brain. The outside world quiets. Chemistry shifts. Images form. Patterns replay. And beneath it all, the brain continues doing what it has always done: adapting, organizing, refining. We may not yet know the complete answer to why we dream, but the evidence suggests that dreaming is not an accident. It is part of a larger rhythm, a nightly process woven into the structure of learning, feeling, and remembering. The body rests, the brain turns inward, and in that inward turning, it may be practicing, sorting, and softening all at once, preparing quietly for another day of waking life. Have you ever gone to bed with something weighing on you, only to wake feeling slightly lighter? Not that the problem disappeared, not that everything was solved, but the sharp edge felt softer. There is growing evidence that sleep, especially REM sleep, plays a role in how we process emotion. During the day, emotional experiences are often paired with stress-related chemicals that heighten alertness. When something upsetting happens, your body responds. Heart rate shifts. Muscles tense. Certain brain messengers rise to prepare you to react. That chemical state is useful in the moment, but it is not meant to last forever. During REM sleep, the brain revisits experiences in a different internal environment. As we discussed earlier, norepinephrine, one of the chemicals linked to alertness and stress, drops to very low levels during REM sleep. This creates a state where emotional memories can be reactivated without the full stress response that originally accompanied them. In simple terms, the brain can replay an event without sounding the alarm as loudly. Brain imaging studies have shown that emotional regions, including the amygdala, remain active during REM sleep. At the same time, the chemical environment is calmer than it would be during a waking stressful event. This combination allows the memory to be processed in a way that may gradually reduce its intensity. Over time, the emotional charge attached to certain memories can soften. This does not mean that dreams erase emotion. It means they may help regulate it. Some studies have found that people who get adequate REM sleep show better emotional stability the following day. They may respond to challenges with slightly less reactivity. Conversely, when REM sleep is disrupted for several nights, emotional responses during the day can become heightened The brain appears to rely on this nightly recalibration. Imagine a memory as a photograph that was taken during a storm. In waking life, every time you look at it, the storm feeling returns at full strength. During REM sleep, the brain may lay that photograph out again, but in a quieter room. The image is still there, the content remains, but the emotional intensity is gently adjusted. Dreams themselves can feel emotional. You might wake from a dream that carried fear or sadness, but the process of dreaming may still contribute to longer-term emotional balance. It is not always immediate. It is not always obvious. Sometimes the benefit is subtle. You simply wake with a slightly different tone in your body, a small shift in perspective, a bit more distance from what felt overwhelming the day before. Sleep after emotionally difficult experiences has been shown to support recovery. People who are able to enter healthy REM cycles after stress may gradually integrate the experience more effectively than those whose sleep remains fragmented. This does not mean that dreaming solves trauma, but it may be one part of how the brain works toward healing. The phrase sometimes used by researchers is, sleep to remember, sleep to forget. Not forgetting the facts, but softening the emotional sting attached to them. Dreams may be one of the mechanisms through which that softening happens. The outside world quiets. The body lies still. Chemistry shifts into its REM balance. Emotional circuits activate in a calmer internal setting. Memories replay without the full force of waking stress. And slowly, across nights and cycles, the brain recalibrates. You may not notice it directly. You may not remember the dream that helped process yesterday's worry, but the process can continue quietly in the background. Stillness outside, gentle adjustment within. And by morning, the emotional landscape may feel just slightly more settled than it did before sleep began. Not all dreams are gentle. Some wake you suddenly, a racing heart, a sharp breath, a lingering sense of fear that takes a moment to settle. Even after your eyes open and you recognize the room around you, the feeling can remain for a while. Nightmares are common. Most people experience them occasionally. They tend to appear more frequently during times of stress, change, or emotional strain. This does not mean something is wrong with you. It means the dreaming system is responding to intensity. During REM sleep, as we explored earlier, emotional centers of the brain become more active. The amygdala, which helps process fear and threat, shows heightened activity during this stage. When daily stress levels rise, that activation can become even stronger. The result may be dreams that feel more urgent or more vivid. Stress during waking life does not disappear at night. The brain continues to process it. When you are under pressure, your sleep architecture can shift. REM periods may become denser, meaning they contain more rapid eye movements and stronger internal activation. For some individuals, this correlates with more intense dream imagery. Nightmares are not random punishments. They are internally generated experiences shaped by emotional load. In most cases, a nightmare reflects heightened activity in systems that evolved to detect and respond to danger. The brain may simulate threatening scenarios as part of its broader rehearsal or processing function. This does not mean the dream predicts anything. It reflects how strongly certain emotional circuits are engaged. For individuals who have experienced trauma, the pattern can be more persistent. In post-traumatic stress disorder, sleep can become fragmented. REM cycles may be disrupted. Emotional memories may replay with greater intensity and less integration. The amygdala may remain highly reactive even during sleep. This can lead to recurring nightmares that feel vivid and difficult. It is important to approach this calmly. Nightmares, even repeated ones, are not signs of weakness. They are signs that emotional systems are active. In many cases, as stress decreases and sleep stabilizes, nightmares become less frequent. The body's reaction during a nightmare is also understandable. Even though REM sleep typically includes muscle relaxation, the heart and breathing systems remain responsive. If a dream scenario triggers strong emotional activation, heart rate can increase. Breathing can quicken. You may wake suddenly because the intensity crosses a threshold that pulls the brain back toward full alertness. This transition can feel abrupt, but once awake, chemistry shifts again. Norepinephrine rises. Orientation returns. The room reestablishes itself. Gradually, the emotional echo fades. Some people experience nightmares more often in childhood. This may be linked to developmental changes in emotion regulation and imagination. For most, frequency decreases over time. It is also worth noting that nightmares often contain symbolic blends rather than literal events. The brain may use exaggerated imagery to represent emotional states. A feeling of being overwhelmed might appear as being chased. A sense of loss might appear as separation in an unfamiliar place. The imagery can feel intense, but it remains internally generated. And just as dreams can support emotional recalibration over time, nightmares may reflect that same processing system working through heavier material. If nightmares become frequent or distressing, gentle interventions can help. Maintaining consistent sleep patterns, reducing late-night stimulation, and addressing waking stress can stabilize REM cycles. In some cases, therapeutic approaches that involve rewriting or rehearsing the dream while awake have been shown to reduce nightmare frequency. This suggests that the dreaming brain is adaptable. It responds to shifts in emotional tone. Not every dream is calm, but even disturbing dreams arise from the same underlying architecture we have been exploring all along. The outer world grows quiet. The body rests. The brain enters its REM state. Emotional circuits activate. And sometimes, when the emotional load is high, the internal world reflects that intensity. Morning still arrives. The light returns. The chemistry shifts. And the system resets again, continuing its quiet work from one night to the next. Some dreams do not appear only once. They return. Not always in exactly the same form, but with a familiar theme. You may find yourself back in a school hallway long after graduation. You may repeatedly dream of being unprepared for something important. You may revisit the same house, the same road, the same feeling of being chased or searching. When a dream repeats, it can feel mysterious. Why would the brain replay the same pattern? The simplest explanation begins with intensity. The brain tends to revisit experiences that carry emotional weight. During the day, events that provoke strong feeling are marked more deeply in memory. At night, when emotional and memory systems activate together during REM sleep, those marked patterns are more likely to resurface. If a theme returns across nights, it may reflect something that remains active in your emotional landscape. This does not mean the dream is a coded message. It means the pattern has not fully settled. When the hippocampus reactivates memory fragments and emotional centers engage, certain networks may be stronger than others. A recurring dream could reflect repeated reactivation of the same network. The brain is not stuck in a loop by mistake. It may be attempting to process, reorganize, or reduce the charge attached to that theme. Stress can amplify this effect. During periods of ongoing stress, REM sleep may become denser, and emotional circuits may be more reactive. If a particular worry remains present during waking life, the brain may continue revisiting related imagery at night. Consider a recurring dream of being late. The exact setting may change. One night, it is an airport. Another night, it is a classroom. But the underlying feeling is similar. Urgency, unpreparedness, pressure. The setting is flexible. The emotion is consistent. The brain appears to return to the emotional core rather than the surface details. Over time, recurring dreams can evolve. The scenario may shift slightly. The ending may change. The emotional tone may soften. These subtle shifts can reflect gradual integration. If the underlying waking stress decreases, the dream theme may appear less frequently or transform into something less intense. Researchers have observed that recurring dreams are often associated with unresolved stress or significant life transitions. This does not mean they predict outcomes. It means they reflect ongoing processing. The brain revisits what remains active. There is also a memory component. When neural networks strengthen through repetition, they become more likely to activate again. If a dream theme has appeared before, the pattern itself becomes easier to reassemble. The brain may follow a familiar internal route, especially when similar emotional conditions arise. But repetition is not necessarily negative. It can signal persistence. It can reflect the brain's effort to stabilize something that has not yet found balance. In some cases, individuals who consciously engage with recurring dreams while awake, perhaps by imagining different outcomes or reducing related stress, report changes in the dream pattern. This suggests that waking emotional shifts can influence sleeping imagery. The dreaming system remains flexible. It responds to change. Even if a dream has appeared many times, it is not fixed permanently. Like all dreams, recurring ones unfold within the same architecture. The outer world quiets. The body remains still. Chemistry shifts into its REM balance. Memory fragments reactivate. Emotional circuits engage. When something continues to carry intensity, the brain may return to it, not as an omen, not as a warning, but as part of its ongoing effort to process and integrate experience. Repetition, in this sense, is not a trap. It is a signal that certain patterns are still active. And just as emotional intensity can soften over nights of healthy sleep, recurring themes can gradually fade as the waking landscape changes. Stillness outside, processing within, and sometimes the same path appears again until it has been walked enough times for the nervous system to settle. There is a rare moment that can happen inside a dream. You are standing somewhere impossible. The sky looks slightly different. A conversation feels unusual. And then, instead of accepting it, a thought arises. This is a dream. The scene does not disappear. You remain inside it. But something changes. This experience is known as lucid dreaming. It is not common for everyone, but many people report having had at least one moment like this in their lives. Awareness returns partially while the dream continues. Normally, during REM sleep, the reasoning systems behind the forehead are quieter. That is part of why dreams feel immersive and unquestioned. But during lucid dreaming, those reasoning areas show signs of reactivation. They are not fully awake, but they are more engaged than in typical dreaming. Researchers have studied this carefully. In sleep laboratories, individuals who report frequent lucid dreams have been monitored using brain recordings. During lucid episodes, certain patterns of electrical activity increase, particularly in regions associated with self-awareness and reflective thought. Some studies have observed bursts of higher frequency brainwaves, suggesting that networks involved in conscious awareness are more active than usual during these moments. What makes lucid dreaming especially fascinating is that communication has occurred across the boundary of sleep. In controlled experiments, trained lucid dreamers were instructed to signal when they became aware inside a dream. Because the body remains largely still during REM sleep, they could not move their arms or speak. But eye movements are not fully suppressed. Participants were asked to move their eyes in specific patterns once they realized they were dreaming. Researchers observed these prearranged eye signals while the individual remained in REM sleep, confirming that awareness had emerged within the dream state. This shows something remarkable. The dreaming brain can support self-recognition. You can know you are inside a simulation created by your own mind, and yet remain within it. Not everyone experiences lucid dreams, and they often occur spontaneously. Some individuals practice techniques aimed at increasing the likelihood of lucidity, such as reality checks during the day or focused intention before sleep. Success varies widely. For many people, lucid dreaming remains occasional. It is important to keep perspective. Lucid dreaming does not represent a superior form of sleep. It is simply one variation within the spectrum of dreaming states. For some, it feels empowering. For others, it is neutral. For a few, it may even feel disorienting. What it reveals, scientifically, is flexibility. The boundary between waking awareness and dreaming is not absolute. It can blur. Reasoning systems that are usually quiet during REM sleep can briefly re-engage without fully waking the body. In a lucid dream, imagery remains active. Emotional centers may still be engaged. But now there is a layer of reflection. You may choose to explore the environment. You may experiment with movement or perspective. Some people report altering the dream's direction once awareness emerges. Even then, the underlying structure remains the same. The outer world is still quiet. The body remains in rematonia. Chemistry still reflects the REM state. What has shifted is the balance of activation across networks involved in awareness. This blending of internal simulation and reflective thought highlights something broader about the brain. Consciousness is not a single switch that is either fully on or fully off. It is a dynamic pattern. During waking life, sensory input and reflective awareness align. During typical dreaming, internal imagery dominates while reflection softens. During lucid dreaming, elements of both coexist. Awareness inside a dream shows that the brain can generate a world and observe it at the same time. You lie still. The room remains dark. Inside your sleeping mind, images unfold. And sometimes, in rare, quiet moments, you recognize that the world around you was built from memory and emotion, even as it continues to shimmer gently in the dark. There is a thin, quiet space between dreaming and waking. You have likely felt it. The alarm has not yet sounded, or perhaps it has just gone silent. Your eyes are still closed. The room has not fully returned. For a few seconds, images hover. They do not feel as solid as they did moments before, but they have not disappeared either. A hallway flickers. A voice trails off. A color dissolves. This edge state is neither fully asleep nor fully awake. As you fall asleep at night, there is a similar transition in the other direction. Thoughts begin to loosen. Images appear briefly, sometimes fragmented, sometimes vivid. You may see patterns, flashes of faces, or brief scenes that do not yet form a full narrative. These early images are part of a state known as hypnagogia. Hypnagogia is the gentle transition from wakefulness into sleep. During this stage, the sensory gate begins to narrow. Brain waves slow, the outside world softens, but awareness has not disappeared. You may still know you are lying in bed. You may still hear faint sounds in the room. The imagery that appears during hypnagogia can feel delicate and fleeting, like sketches that vanish as soon as you notice them. On the other side of sleep is hypnopompia. This is the transition from sleep back into wakefulness. Hypnopompia can carry dream fragments into the morning. The brain is shifting chemistry again. Norepinephrine rises. Alertness increases. But the visual and emotional systems may still be active for a moment. The result can be lingering images or sensations that slowly fade as the room becomes clearer. These two edge states remind us that sleep is not a sharp boundary. It is a gradient. The brain does not flip from dreaming to waking in a single instant. Networks shift gradually. Some regions wake faster than others. This staggered reactivation creates the soft blending we sometimes experience in the morning. There is also something called sleep inertia. Sleep inertia is the feeling of heaviness or mental fog that can occur just after waking, especially if you wake from deep sleep. Your body may be upright, your eyes may be open, but your thinking feels slower. Reaction time may be reduced. This is because certain brain systems take longer to fully return to waking levels of activity. During this time, fragments of dream imagery may still linger at the edges of awareness. Microdreams can occur in this in-between territory as well. Microdreams are brief bursts of dreamlike imagery that can happen as you drift into sleep, or, in some cases, during moments of extreme fatigue while awake. They may last only a few seconds. A face appears. A sound seems to occur. A short scene plays and then vanishes. These are signs that parts of the dreaming system can activate even before full REM sleep begins. The transitions reveal something important. Dreaming and waking are not entirely separate worlds. They overlap. The brain shifts its balance gradually. Sensory input decreases, internal imagery increases, chemistry changes, muscle tone adjusts. Then, in reverse, alertness returns. External signals regain priority. The internally built world softens. If you have ever woken from a dream and felt unsure for a moment which world was primary, you have touched this boundary. It is delicate. It is temporary. But it shows that consciousness is layered. The outer world can return while inner images still flicker. Or inner images can begin forming while the outer world has not yet fully faded. You lie still. The room slowly becomes clear, or the room slowly dissolves. And in that thin space between states, the brain moves quietly from one mode of experience to another, carrying traces of the night into the morning, and traces of the day into sleep, as if the boundary between worlds is softer than it first appears. If dreams can feel so real, a quiet question naturally follows. What makes waking life feel real? When you are awake, you trust your senses. You trust that the room around you exists in a stable way. The walls do not change shape. The floor does not suddenly turn into water. The people you speak with remain consistent. Reality feels solid, dependable, shared. But the brain does not passively receive reality like a camera recording a scene. It builds an interpretation. During waking life, your eyes gather light, your ears gather sound, your skin gathers pressure and temperature, but the raw signals themselves are incomplete. The brain must organize them, fill in gaps, and predict what comes next. It does this constantly and automatically. In simple terms, the brain is always making educated guesses. It predicts what it expects to see, hear, and feel, then compares those predictions to incoming signals. When the prediction matches the signal, experience feels smooth and stable. When there is a mismatch, attention sharpens and the brain adjusts. This process is sometimes described as predictive processing. You do not need to remember the term. What matters is the idea. The brain does not simply react to the world. It anticipates it. For example, when you reach for a cup, your brain predicts the sensation of your fingers touching it. When the expected pressure occurs, the experience feels normal. If the cup is not where you expected it to be, surprise arises. The brain updates its internal model. This predictive system operates continuously. It is how perception becomes coherent rather than chaotic. Now consider dreaming. During REM sleep, the flow of sensory input from the outside world is greatly reduced. The thalamic gate narrows. The eyes are closed. The room remains quiet. The predictive system does not shut down. It simply lacks strong external correction. The brain continues generating expectations. But now, instead of comparing them to outside signals, it compares them mostly to internally generated activity. The result is a self-contained world. The same machinery that builds waking perception builds dream perception. The difference is that in waking life, predictions are constantly corrected by real-time sensory input. In dreaming, the corrections are minimal. The internally generated model becomes the dominant experience. This helps explain why dreams can feel just as immersive as waking life. The brain is using the same tools. Visual areas activate. Emotional systems engage. Predictions unfold into scenes. Without strong outside input to anchor or challenge those scenes, the internally built world stabilizes on its own terms. In waking life, perception feels shared because multiple brains are receiving overlapping sensory input from the same environment. In dreaming, the environment is private because it arises entirely from your own stored patterns and predictions. Yet the feeling of presence is similar. You stand somewhere. You move through space. You interact. All of it feels located in a world, even though that world is constructed from memory fragments and predictive models. This realization does not make waking life unreal. It highlights how active the brain is in shaping all experience. Even now, as you listen, your brain is predicting the next word before it arrives. It is filling in meaning based on tone and rhythm. Perception is not passive. It is participatory. Dreaming reveals this more clearly because it removes the outside anchor. When the anchor disappears, the internal model continues running. Stillness outside. Construction within. The brain as a reality builder does not rest. By day, it builds from light, sound, and touch. By night, it builds from memory, emotion, and expectation. The difference is not the machinery. It is the source of correction. And in that way, dreaming is not separate from waking life. It is the same system operating under different conditions, quietly demonstrating that reality, whether shared or private, is always an interpretation shaped by the living brain. Have you ever woken from a dream with the strange feeling that you had been practicing something? Not in a deliberate way, not with clear instructions, but as if your mind had been moving through situations, testing responses, exploring possibilities. Dreaming may serve as a kind of rehearsal. During the day, when you learn a skill, have a conversation, or experience something emotional, networks of neurons change slightly. Connections strengthen, patterns form. But those patterns are still flexible. They are not yet fully stabilized. Sleep appears to play a role in refining them. One process involved is sometimes called memory reconsolidation. When a memory is reactivated, even briefly, it becomes temporarily flexible again. It can be adjusted before it is stored once more. During REM sleep, when the hippocampus and other memory-related regions reactivate patterns from the day, memories may enter this flexible state. The dream does not replay events like a perfect recording. Instead, it often blends elements together. A conversation with one person may occur in the setting of another. A recent event may mix with an older one. This blending may allow the brain to compare patterns, integrate information, and adjust emotional tone. In this sense, dreaming can be practiced without physical movement. Athletes sometimes report dreaming about their sport. Musicians may dream of performing. Students may dream of exams or presentations. These dreams are not necessarily literal rehearsals, but they activate similar neural circuits to those used during waking performance. Research in skill learning has shown that sleep improves performance on certain tasks, even without additional practice. This improvement is especially noticeable when REM sleep is preserved. The brain appears to continue refining motor and cognitive patterns during the night. You do not move your body, yet the brain may be simulating movement internally. Emotional rehearsal may work in a similar way. If you are anticipating a difficult conversation, your dream might include themes of confrontation or avoidance. The scenario may not match reality exactly, but emotional circuits are being activated and explored. The brain may be testing how it feels to respond in different ways. This does not mean dreams are always accurate rehearsals. They are flexible simulations. The value may lie not in perfect realism, but in safe exploration. Because the body remains in REM. Atonia. You are protected from acting out the simulation physically. You can run without moving. You can speak without sound. You can face imagined challenges without real-world consequences. The brain can experiment. Some researchers suggest that this ability to simulate scenarios without risk may have evolutionary value. A nervous system that can explore threats internally might prepare for them more effectively during waking life. Even if the dream is exaggerated or symbolic, the underlying activation of emotional and perceptual systems may contribute to readiness. There is also evidence that emotional rehearsal during REM sleep can help adjust how strongly certain memories are felt. By reactivating emotional material in a lower stress chemical environment, the brain may gradually reduce its intensity. This blends rehearsal with regulation. Practice does not always mean preparing for something external. Sometimes it means integrating what has already happened, revisiting it, reshaping it, stabilizing it, all without movement. The idea of dreaming as practice does not claim that every dream has a clear purpose. Some dreams may reflect random blends of recent memory fragments. Others may contain traces of learning or emotional adjustment. The brain is complex enough to support multiple processes at once. What remains consistent is the simulation. The outer world is quiet. The body lies still. The predictive machinery continues running. Memory patterns reactivate. Emotion rises and falls. And inside that internal landscape, the brain may be refining skills, testing responses, and rehearsing feelings, all within a safe and contained environment. Practice without risk. Movement without motion. Preparation without effort. The night continues its quiet work, even when you are unaware of the patterns being shaped inside your sleeping mind. After exploring all of this, the question returns in a quieter form. What is dreaming really? We have looked at chemistry shifting. We have seen visual areas activate without light. We have followed memory fragments recombining and emotional centers brightening. We have watched the body remain still while the inner world moves. We have seen rehearsal, regulation, replay, and simulation. Taken together, dreaming begins to look less like random imagery and more like integration. During the day, experience arrives in pieces. You gather sights, sounds, conversations, small stresses, subtle joys. Some of it is stored clearly. Some of it lingers at the edges. Emotions attach to certain events more strongly than others. Predictions are updated. Expectations shift. The brain adjusts continuously to the demands of waking life. At night, especially during REM sleep, many of those systems activate together. Memory systems re-engage. Emotional systems remain active. Visual systems generate imagery. Predictive systems continue constructing models. The outer world is quiet enough, that these processes can unfold internally. Dreaming may be the brain's way of allowing multiple domains to overlap. Emotion and memory, perception and prediction, past experience and imagined possibility. In waking life, these domains are guided heavily by incoming sensory signals. During dreaming, they are guided more by internal patterns. But the machinery is the same. This is why dreaming is not meaningless. It is also why it is not entirely mystical. The content can be strange. The imagery can be symbolic. The logic can be loose. But beneath the surface, coordinated neural systems are active in recognizable ways. Dreaming appears to integrate. It may integrate new memories into older networks. It may integrate emotional responses into calmer baselines. It may integrate predictions with stored experience. This does not mean every dream has a specific message waiting to be decoded. It means dreaming is part of a larger biological rhythm. The brain does not separate thinking, feeling, and perceiving into isolated compartments. These systems interact constantly. During REM sleep, they interact without strong outside correction, allowing patterns to be explored in flexible ways. Some dreams will feel calm, some will feel intense, some will be forgotten within seconds, some will linger as fragments, but all of them arise from the same internal architecture. When we describe dreams as integration, we are not assigning purpose to each image. We are observing that dreaming brings together systems that were active during the day and allows them to interact in a different balance. Emotion without full stress chemistry. Imagery without external light. Prediction without external correction. Memory without strict sequencing. The result can appear chaotic at the surface level. Scenes shift, characters blend, time stretches. But when viewed through the lens of neural coordination, there is order beneath the strangeness. Patterns activate. Connections strengthen or weaken. Emotional tone adjusts. The brain continues refining its internal model of the world. Dreaming, in this sense, is not separate from waking life. It is the same living system operating under different constraints. The body rests. The sensory gate narrows. Chemistry shifts toward its REM profile. And within that state, the brain weaves together threads from memory, emotion, and prediction, shaping them into experiences that may feel unusual, but arise from deeply familiar processes. We do not yet understand every detail. There is still mystery, but the mystery is grounded. It is biological. It is rhythmic. It is something nearly every human brain does, night after night. Not chaos, not randomness, not prophecy, but integration. A quiet blending of systems that keeps the living mind adaptable, responsive, and ready to meet the next day when light returns. The night is still around you. We began with a simple observation. Each night, you close your eyes, and something begins. An internally lit world appears in complete darkness. Images form without light. Emotion moves without physical action. Entire places unfold while your body remains still. Now, after traveling through the science gently, the mystery feels a little more grounded. The outer world grows quiet as the sensory gate narrows. The brain does not shut down. It changes direction. Chemistry shifts into its REM balance. Visual areas activate without eyes. Memory fragments recombine. Emotion brightens while logic softens. Time bends without external clocks. Some dreams fade within minutes because the chemistry of memory is different at night. Children dream before they can explain what dreaming is. Animals show similar patterns of internal replay. The brain may rehearse, it may regulate, it may recalibrate. Nightmares can reflect emotional intensity. Recurring dreams can signal patterns that are still active. Lucid moments reveal awareness inside simulation, and at the edge between sleep and waking, images dissolve as chemistry shifts again. What remains is something steady. The same brain that builds waking reality also builds dreams. By day, it predicts and corrects using light, sound, and touch. By night, it predicts and constructs from memory and emotion. The machinery does not disappear when you fall asleep. It continues its quiet work. Dreaming is not random noise. It is not fully solved either. It is integration, a nightly blending of memory, emotion, perception, and prediction. A recalibration that unfolds in stillness. Right now, as you lie there, perhaps listening in the dark, your body is heavy and quiet. Breathing slows. Muscles soften. The outside world matters a little less. And somewhere beneath conscious awareness, systems begin preparing for that inward turn. You do not have to force it. You do not have to understand every detail. The brain already knows how to move through its cycles. It knows how to narrow the sensory gate. It knows how to shift its chemistry. It knows how to build images from fragments it has carefully stored. Soon, perhaps, the room will fade at the edges. Thoughts will loosen. A scene may begin to assemble in the quiet of your own mind. And once again, in complete darkness, the brain will generate a world lit from within. Stillness outside, movement within. The night continues. Rest well.